This video is the third part of the series translating EDI files into a database. If you haven't seen the previous two, I highly recommend that you watch them first. I'll have their links below in the description field. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a C# program with the help of the SEF Manager that will translate an EDI X12 file, specifically the 846 that we've been working with. Okay, so let's start. First, I'm going to open up the SEF file with the SEF Manager. Remember, in my first video, I showed you how to create this SEF file from scratch. Then, under Tools, go to Source Code Maker for C#.NET, select Translate, then click on OK. So here's the code it generated. I can actually copy and paste this into my program and it will run, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to copy and paste them in sections and modify them to my specifications accordingly. Okay, so the first section I'm going to copy is the main procedure. And I'm going to paste it into our form. Let me create a button here. I'll name it Translate 846. And I'll call the name Translate 846. And paste the code. Okay, so let's go to the top. Let me add the framework EDI reference first. Since this is a 64-bit application, I'm going to select the Freddy.NET X64. And since I'm using .NET 4, I'm going to use this instead of that. So I'll select this, hit OK. Now that I have the Freddy component reference, I can use it in my program. Now let's scroll through the code and see what needs changing. Okay, this is asking for the EDI file name and the full path. I'm going to change that and just have the path of the application. Separate from the EDI file name. And the EDI file name is going to be the sample EDI file that we were given. So just copy this. And the SEF file name is this. I have to make sure I include these files in my project. So I gotta copy these files. Here. Then make sure show all files, and here they are. So I'm going to select these two files, include in project, and I gotta make sure that I copy them if needed. Okay, that's good. Let's close this. Okay, so moving on. This is where the SEF file gets loaded, but I have to add the application path here. This is where the EDI file gets loaded. So I'm going to do the same thing here where I include the path. Okay, so once we've loaded the EDI file, we get its first data segment. And then we go into a loop. Now this loop iterates through each segment in the EDI file. Here's the method, the oSegment.next. Once we get a data segment, we have to identify it, and we uniquely identify it by its segment ID, the loop section, and the area. Let me open up the EDI file with the eFile Manager so that we can also see what we are translating. Okay, so the ISA segment is the first segment. Next is the GS, then ST, and so on. The ISA segment, let me expand this, has a segment ID ISA, and it's in area 0, and it's loop section, and it's not in any of the loop section because it's blank. If we go to the code, we see that we see the conditions here. If area is equals to 0, and if segment ID is ISA, then get the values from the data element and assign it to a variable. So the logic is the same for the IEA segment, the GS, and the GE. If you check our eFile Manager, the GS is in area 0 and it's not in any loop section, and the GE area 0, not in any loop section, and the IEA area 0 and not in any loop section. The next segments are the header segments, and they would be in area 1. And it starts with the ST segment, area 1, BIA, area 1, and the DTM segment, area 1. And these three segments aren't in any loop, so the loop section is blank as well. Now let's see how they're handled in the code. So this is area 1, And if loop section is blank, let me change this variable name to loop section because it's more appropriate. Okay, that's bad. Okay, so if the segments are in area 1 and they're not in any loop, then this procedure is called. Let's find this procedure in our SEF Manager. Oh, it's just right here. Okay, so instead of copying this whole procedure, I'm just going to copy these. Just the code inside the procedure and not the whole procedure itself. And I'm going to replace it here. I'm going to delete this. Okay, so if the segments are in area 1, they're not in any loop section, and the segment ID is ST, then read the data elements. And if it's BIA, read the data elements. And if it's DTM, read the data elements of the DTM segment. Okay, so let's do the next segment, which is N1. And it's in loop section N1. So let's see that in the eFile Manager. So here's the loop N1. And this is the N1 segment. So the N1 segment is in area 1. And its loop section is N1. And the segment ID is N1. So let's go back to our code. Find this procedure in the SEF Manager. It's actually this one right here. So I'm just going to copy the contents in the procedure, not the whole procedure itself. And I'm going to copy it, and I'll replace this line here. I don't need this. So if the segment is in loop section N1 and the segment ID is N1, then read the data elements for that segment. Okay, so let's move on to the next segment. Let me bring up the eFile Manager. Okay, so the next segment is the LIN segment. It is in area 2 and it's in loop section LIN. So let's go to the source code. So here's area 2. There are no segments in loop section blank. And the segment LIN is in loop section LIN. So I'm going to go to the SEF Manager, look for that procedure here, which is this, and I'm going to copy all of these. And I'm just going to replace this line here. Okay, so if the segment is in area 2 and they're in loop section LIN, then read their data elements. So this is for the LIN segment, and I went ahead and copied the DTM segment as well and the SDQ segment. So if we bring up our eFile Manager, this is done and this is done. Okay, so we've done all the segments in the LIN loop. So our next segment is the CTT segment. And this is in area 3, and it's not in any loop section. So let's go to our code, area 3, loop section blank. So let's look for this procedure name in our SEF Manager. Here it is. So I'm just going to copy all these, replace this, and now we have the algorithm that will read the values in the data elements of the CTT segment. Okay, now that we're done with the logic of reading all the segments, let's go ahead and test it. So let's go to the form design, add a list box, go back to the source code, and let's go to the eFile Manager. So I'm gonna try and read this value here, which is 8. So that's in the first data element of the CTT segment. So in my code, I'm going to add a line, list box, 1, add items, add as well. Let me compile this. Let's see the problem we're getting here. You don't need this. Let's rebuild it again. Okay, so everything looks good. Let me run it. Click the button. Okay. Looks like we have a problem here with our component. So I'm going to close this. Because this is an x64 application, I have to change this any CPU to x64. Okay. Now let's rebuild this. Run it again. There we have it. Here's the value 8. So this looks like it's working. What I can do is I can add a few more of these. in a few of these segments. So let's say if I wanted to get the interchange control, I'm just gonna copy and paste. Transaction set control. I'm just going to randomly put this line in some of the segments that I'm interested in. Like so, this is the date, so I'm going to put it here. And the N1, the name. And in the detail section, let's get this one here, the third data element. And that should do it. Okay, so we're able to read the interchange control number, the transaction set control number, the date, the name, and the product ID in the line items, and in the conclusion the number of line items. So we know this code works. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to tie this code with a SQL database that we had created earlier. Right, so thank you for watching. Bye.